Hello guys, and welcome in this first video of our game engine series. Hope you guys are doing good. I promised to start a video series about making a game engine in OpenGL using C++ and ImGui. And since I'm a man of word, this is the first video in our series. Just want to invite you guys to enjoy it. Before we start talking about technical stuff, I think it's quite important for me to show you the current stage of the engine. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I just want to let you know that the engine is already there. We're not just starting something without having anything already built. I already have it built, and I just want to show you how you can actually achieve this. So you can see here on the screen, we have this nice looking UI game engine, and you know, we probably already know about ImGui. I can move things around and, you know, change the position of these, or even take this and put it here instead if I want. So I can set the UI as I want, basically. And the next thing I want to talk about, you can see the scene here. It has this color because I set the directional light, and you can see I can define all kind of view. If you want to have it darkened, if you want to have the night or the day, you can have all kind of thing you want to have here. So you can really make it as you want, and that's basically because we have directional light, as you can see here. Now I'm able to actually add entities. As you can see, I can scale this up, move around. I've been uploading a lot of videos. Let me change the light, make it a little white so you can see, because I think it's really dark right here. So I can add entities. You can see here, when I add the entity, it just appear here, and I can remove it. You can see, just remove the entities. I can add, I can remove, and I can actually move the camera around and see the scene properly, how it looks. As you can see here, my skybox can move around. So that's basically it. I can use key to control the position of the camera and stuff like that, you know, and you can see how the values are changing here on the right corner here. That's how I can actually move my camera using key. And yeah, you can see we have a folder structure down here, which we're not using yet, but this is actually a real folder structure. This is not just something that I put there like a placeholder. This is real, but this is just because I want to know how this is gonna look. Now I'm not using any folder icons, but I'm gonna be doing that. You can see we have some images, we have our shader, we have like the textures that I'm using here. So that's basically important. And you can see we have the property panel, which is responsive. When I choose the component here, it changes according to the component the entity has. I could choose this one or choose this other one. You see, it's gonna change. So adding component, I haven't finished implementing it right now, but I could just add component using this here. Right now I'm adding, for example, the tag. I'm going to be creating like a pop-up menu. When I click on this button, then the pop-up menu just appears, and there you can select you know, the component you want to use in this case. And I can actually run the game in full screen modus, clicking on this play button right here. I also have some button which I'm going to be implementing there, some, you know, some tools for rotating, moving and stuff like that. These are not implemented yet, but just wanted to show you where this is actually at. And now you can build like a full working scene. You're not able to save anything right now, but as I said, we're working on that. That's basically the game engine we're gonna be building, and I hope you guys find it interesting. If you do, make sure you leave a comment in the description below so that I can know what you think. One last thing I want to mention before we get started is that you guys can get access to the source code on my Patreon page. I always provide the link in the description below. You can even get the current stage of the engine if you want. All information are on my Patreon page if you guys are interested in that. So without spending your time too much, let's get started. The purpose of this game engine series is not to teach you the basics of OpenGL. We already have another series where you can learn all the basics that you need. I'm still gonna be uploading new videos on that series, Every time I'm going to be introducing a new concept here, I'm going to be uploading a video in the OpenGL basics series so that you guys can understand the theoretical aspect. I'm actually going to be using the knowledge of OpenGL here. I'm not going to be trying to explain them too much. I'm going to be using them. If you're someone who is just trying to, start with OpenGL or even start with C++, then I don't recommend you to watch these videos. I'm going to be using Visual Studio 2019 to write my code, but you guys can use whatever you want as long as you can set up the libraries like GLM, GLFW, Glue, STB image. If you can set up that, I really recommend to use the one that fits the most for you. That's quite important to say. Now, you want to go out and create an empty project, empty C++ project. And you want to create a source folder in your project by just clicking right and you say add new folder, and you set the name of that folder to source. Inside of that source folder, you want to create another one called engine, in which you're going to be creating a header and a C++ file for that engine class. This is going to be like the central point of our game engine. So that's why I just want to define this up front. At the root of your source directory, you want to create 3 files. The first one is going to be app.cpp, where you want to define your main function. I'm going to be talking about this couple of lines of code in a couple of seconds. It's not a huge, we're not going to be writing that much code in this video. We're just setting up some important things. So you want to create a app.cpp. You could call it main.cpp, program.cpp, it doesn't matter. These 2 files right here, PCH, we're going to be using precompiled headers because I think this will boost our compiling time. I don't want to spend too much time compiling code over and over, so that's why we're going to be using precompiled header. I'm talking about that in a couple of seconds. So you want to create a header file and a C++ file for the precompiled file. Before we talk about all these precompiled stuff and code, you want to see the libraries we're going to be using. So I'm going to open this project in the directory in the Explorer right here. You can see, if I go back in the root of my project, you can see I have this folder here called libraries. If you've watched the OpenGL basics series, you already know what I'm talking about. You don't even have to do this if you already watched that. That's why I'm not going to spend too much time showing you how to set up basic libraries. And in here, in the libraries folder, I have include and libs. In the include, I have all the libraries we're going to be using. There are some coming later, but for now we have GLM. You know where to download GLM. If you don't know, watch the first video on my OpenGL series. I showed how to set up this. I'm just showing you just so that you guys can know. You have GLFW, you have Glue, you have Asim for loading models, and in the libs, this is where I add my libs files. And so if I go on my project right here, you can see I basically set up this information here. If I go to C++ here, general, and I go here, you will see I have my solution libraries include. This is for the include, and I also add my source folder here just because I want to add it in the include path so that I don't always have to put the source, the name of each folder every time. In the linker also, I added my my lib folder here in the additional libraries. And you can see I add my lib folder, and also I have my lib files. I just added them here for Glue, GLF, OpenGL, and whatever. So you can simply, if you want, just copy this. But as I said, you can watch the first video on the basics OpenGL series. So that's not something I'm going to spend too much time on. Now that we have all the libraries set up, I want to move on and talk about this PCH. Now, as I said, the reason why I'm going to be using precompiled headers is because this is going to improve the compilation time. I don't believe you can create a real project in C++ without using vectors, strings, iOS stream to, print things on the console, or file streaming or string streaming. You always need these kind of things. So instead of having to compile this every time when you want to compile your project, you can compile this once, and now in the future, when you start using it in your project, when you compile your project again, this is not going to get compiled again, and the compilation process is going to be quite fast. So in your pch.cpp, you want to add what you have here. So you can see I add set map. Anything that you think could be important for you, you can add that if you want. But for now, I think this is what I need. As we move forward, if I need more things, I'm gonna be probably adding here, but I think these are the basics that we already need. Now, as you can see, I have glue because this is gonna load my OpenGL function. You know, you need to have Opengl Loader to be able to use OpenGL function on your computer, because the OpenGL does not, you know, provide the implementation of functions. You want to get the implementation on your graphic card. That's why we need glue. I shouldn't be talking about this, but you know, just want to say that just right on the way. I have GLM for, you know, all the transformation and vectors and things like that, metrics. Also have it here. And here I have some platform related stuff. I don't have anything here right now, but in the future, if you want to probably compile this game engine for like Linux, for a Linux computer, then you want to maybe include some Linux related libraries. That's why I just added here. So this right now is empty, but just so you guys can know. And the only thing you want to do in the pch.cpp is to include that file. That's basically it. Now, how to tell Visual Studio how that we want to use the precompiled header? You want to click on your project here and you go to properties, and down here in the C++ section here, you want to go to precompile headers, and up here in the precompile header, you want to go and set this to use, because we want to use. Keep in mind that you can see we have the pch.h here, which is the file that I created here. So if you had another name, you want to make sure you put that name here. So that's why I have this name right here. And down here, I just added this here, this platform, because I want to compile this and always get the platform PCH, the platform precompiled headers. That's why I add this tag right here. But you don't have to change anything here. You can leave it like that. You can even leave this like that. But you can see the difference between what you have and what I have is just this underscore platform target. If I'm compiling with a 64 byte, then I'm gonna get the platform version. So just like that. And this is for the for the header file. Now, if you click on your C++ file here on the pch.c++, you see this will switch over to pca.c++. And here on the precompiled header, you want to, instead of saying use, you want to create. So for the header file, we said use, and for the C++ file, we say create. And you can see the precompiled header file from which we're going to create is this pca.h, still this one here. And I also have this one with the target, as I said. If you create a C++ file anywhere, you want to always put this pch.h in that file, because this will actually tell the compiler that you might want to use this stuff. If you don't, then you will crash. So if you have this app C++, go out and include that and just run your project. And if you now go on your project and open it in the folder explorer, and you can go in the debug up here, not here, I don't think that's here, yeah, here, you can see we have this here. You can see we have this fuse orbit underscore x 86 in pch. It is already compiled. Now, since it is already compiled, every time it won't compile it again, and you know, it's gonna be quite better. So this is the first thing I wanted to show, because that was quite important to know. You want to create this class here that I call engine. We're gonna be using this namespace. I'm gonna be using this namespace. This is just like a shortcut of fuse orbit 3D, the name of the engine, fuse orbit 3D. I just call it FO3D, just like that. And you want to create just this class right here. As you can see, we have the init size of the screen. So when we create our window, this is the size that it's gonna have. It's just some constant inside of the namespace. And we have the constructor and the destructor. And I want this class to be a static class. I don't want it to be you know, something that you want to instantiate. And also, one thing you want to make sure you add here is a copy constructor. So if I put this, I can only send a reference, so they will always have one instance of this class. You cannot copy this. This is really important to do. All it does is create a static variable and return it. The first time you're going to call this, it's going to create this variable, and every time you call it, it's always going to return it. That's basically what is going on here. We have a create, update, and initialize function, which we're going to implement. The run function will simply return this value here. So this is going to be used for our main loop, because we're going to be talking about the main loop in a couple of seconds. And this is always going to return the current state of run. If it's not running, then this value is going to be set to false and the program will simply quit. And if you want to maybe get this window right here, because we're going to be creating the event system, the event class or whatever, and the event class actually needs the window where we're going to be registering our callbacks and stuff. That's why I have this function right here, and I have the function to get the width and the height of the screen. This is also important, and that's basically what I defined here. Now, as you can see here in this namespace, I defined this static variable which I call core. I don't want to be writing this like this every time. That's the reason why I just go out, and every time I'm going to include this in a file, it's going to create this core variable for me, and I'll be able to access that in that file where I include this. So that's the reason why I'm doing this. And you can see that if I go in the app.cpp, I included it, and you can see I can simply say core and then I say initialize. If I didn't have that static variable defined, I would have said engine. Oh, I need the namespace. I'll say engine, and then I'll say ref, and then I'll have to call initialize. You see, this is a lot. I think this looks better. This is more like a good way of writing code. That's why I'm doing that. So you get the point. Now, as you can see here, I simply call the init function to initialize, create the window and stuff. I'm going to be talking about that. And we have the update function, and this run function will simply, you know, return run every time. If run is set to false, then it's simply going to break this loop and come out of the program. So if I go to the CPP file of the engine, you can see our constructor right here. We're simply creating a GLFW window. So I'm not going to be spending that much time trying to explain how to create a window. So we simply want to initialize some attribute of the window. You can see here the minimal OpenGL we're going to be using is going to be the 3.1, and you want to also set the profile that OpenGL is going to be using. I want to set this to forward compat. This will work for everyone who has from 3.1 till whatever exists right now. That's why I'm setting the forward compat. It starts from 3.1 and it goes. You can also set the GLF OpenGL core profile, which starts from 3.3. If you have a 3.3 OpenGL, then you could put that, but this will start from 3.1 and go up. So if you have 3.3, it's gonna be fine. If you have 3.5, whatever, it's gonna be fine. And here I want to get the information of the current monitor, because yeah, I want to set things like the number of bits of the red, color, blue. This is quite important. And here I create the window and set the height and the width, the title. This is, you can actually define the primary monitor on which you want your window to be created. You could simply take this one and put it here and you will have it, but you don't want that. And you also want to define if it's going to be shared. No, so we don't care about that. And now the next step is to create our context. This is quite important. If we don't create a context, then OpenGL will not have anything to operate on, because OpenGL always operate in a context, because in this context there are going to be some variable defined in OpenGL that you're going to be able to access. And so those variable, those attribute are going to be defined when you create this context right here. And now from now on, you are able to actually access the function of OpenGL and use them to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So you want to initialize glue. This init glue is going to grab all the functions that we have on our graphic card and give it to us so that we can use it. If you remember from the basics OpenGL series, OpenGL is just a specification, and each manufacturer of the graphic card will then define what the function does on its graphic card. And so in order to use OpenGL on a graphic card, you need a way to actually load the function from the graphic card. That's why we need glue. Glue is going to grab everything on the graphic card and set it for us so that we can use that. And you also want to set the experimental to true. This will simply tell OpenGL to use modern ways of dealing with stuff. He will always check if there is a modern way of dealing with stuff before dealing with the old ways. So that's why it's important to set this. And in the destructor, I just destroyed my window. I just destroy whatever GLF I've created. All the allocated memory is going to be set free, and you can see the rest is just basic stuff. So this is basically the engine we have. If you run this, you will simply have a window which you will not be able to close because we're not handling any event yet. So the window is not waiting for any event to happen. So that's why it's just hanging like that. And that's basically what I wanted to do in this video. Set some basics and show you some basic stuff before we start doing some real stuff. That's basically it for this first video in the game engine series. In the next video, we're going to be moving forward, adding more stuff. I'm going to be leaving that as a surprise. So hope you guys learned something from this video. If you did, make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe. Ciao.